Hey, good morning. It's Mark here with another morning rant. Um, yeah, 3 o'clock in the morning. Um, let's get into some GOP hypocrisy, shall we? They're upset. Okay, the GOP is upset that Donald Trump lost the 2020 election mainly due to mail-in ballots, and that was the issue. Now, in let's say I think it was 1 billion and 1 billion votes. There have been less than less than 100 cases of fraud out of 1 billion. And in that 100 cases, I think those who actually committed fraud were probably about 10. My numbers could be off, but it's a very small amount of people. And so far in the 2020 election, everybody that committed some kind of blatant know what I'm doing fraud have been Republicans. Members of the GOP who voted for who parent passed away, and a GOP member voted for their dead or deceased sibling or father or parent or whatever. So that's what's been going on. As a matter of fact, the Texas lieutenant governor, I think it was, had to pay out money to a guy in another state because he found cases of voter fraud, and it was from GOP members. And I think the Texas lieutenant governor had to pay money out for that fact. So when it comes to voter fraud, again, in my opinion, I'm not sure why we don't have secure elections to where an election grid or an election process that's so secure that members of the country, citizens, can vote from home with ID. There should be some way that we can go and vote for our president, vote for our senators and our congressmen and whoever from home. We should not be standing in 12-hour lines to cast a damn vote. But keeping up with that arcane system has kept the GOP in power for a long time. And here's a video. Here's a video explaining how the GOP know they're going to lose, whether we vote online, whether we vote by mail, whether we vote in person. This proves that if you let members or if you let citizens vote equally and fairly, the GOP will no longer be a party.
The rigged system of redistricting is the single biggest structural driver of polarization in our politics. And the great state of Ohio just showed us how professional partisan cynical disregard for the will of the people undermines representative democracy. You see, the Republican-controlled legislature just passed an absurd partisan gerrymander designed to give them control of as many as 13 congressional seats, giving Democrats just 2. Okay, that's an 87% of the congressional delegation in a state where Trump won just 53% of the vote.
How is that fair? How is that fair? How is that fair? Donald Trump won Ohio by, let's say, 8 points. 8 points. I give him that. He won Ohio by 8 points. But the state legislature has gerrymandered the vote, or gerrymandered the districts that will give them, no matter how many people vote Democrat, no matter how many people vote Democrat, no matter how many people vote Republican, they will still control the state legislatures. Out of, what do you say, out of 15 seats? they'll have 13. How is that fair?
It's a state where Republican registration fell by more than 120,000 over the last 4 years.
Again, like I said, the GOP voter registration fell off. Democrats has increased. It could have stayed the same. That doesn't matter, because the way they're doing the districts in Ohio, no matter how many people vote Republican, no matter how many people vote Democrat, the Republicans will still win. They can vote. I've seen math where Democrats voted in record numbers. Out of 75% of eligible people that can vote Democrat, I think 65% voted. Out of 80% of Republicans that vote Republican, 40% voted. So you have a 20% difference between Democrats and Republicans voting, and Republicans still control the House legislatures or the state councils or whatever. So it doesn't matter. The way they rigged the systems, the way they gerrymandered the lines, the districts, no matter how many Democrats vote, Republicans will still win.
Giving them 1.9 million party members, compared to the Democrats' 1.6 million and 4.6 million registered independents. So these maps are an insult to democracy. They are designed to disenfranchise voters. But believe it or not, that's not the worst of it. Because in 2018, just 3 years ago, a stunning 75% of Ohio voters backed an amendment to their state constitution, ensuring that redistricting would be bipartisan and not favor any one political party.
Fair.
It also promised that congressional maps would be drawn in such a way as to keep counties and towns whole, imposing geographic common sense on the absurd gerrymanders that divide communities to maximize partisan power. And this was...
What do they mean by, what does he mean by keeping counties and townships intact? And as far as HBO Max here, people, I told you I'd be nerding out. This is, let's see, hold on. This is Laura Linney. I don't know why it's black right now, but that's fine. If you can see here, I'm watching John Adams, the docuseries, the series on HBO. I love that series. It's pretty good. But anyway, just nerding out real quick. Let's see. Gerrymandered districts. Yeah, images. When they talk about weird districts, this right here. Let's go with this one. Gerrymandering is even more infuriating when you can actually see it. Is that a district? This is in Houston, Texas. Is this a district? I'm sorry, this is not Houston, Texas. This is in Texas. Look at this shit. Is this a district? No. These are Republican voters. This is not a district. Look at this one. Is this a district? No. This is not a district. This is in Chicago. And I did this before. I've done this before. I've showed you guys gerrymandered districts before. This is not a district. These people really have nothing in common other than being a certain demographic or a certain ethnicity. And for the most part, Republicans control, I would say, they control a large amount of congressional districts. I just put it to congressional seats, state congressional seats. Those are not districts. And in Ohio, they're saying, hey, let's keep it fair. Let's keep it decent. Let's keep districts and counties intact when we're voting, when we're creating districts. But no, they do crap like this. Look at North Carolina. What? They didn't, hold on, I'm sorry. Here it is. That's not a district. They cut the Democrats right through the middle. Look at this. These are not districts. What is this? Look at this. Democrats. What's it say? Okay, I gotta pay to see that darn photo. I can see it from here. Look at this. This is Illinois. That's a district. This up here, this black area up here, this is a district right here. In Louisiana, they took, is that an entire district? What is this? They took the edge of the damn map and turned it into a district. And look at this, North Carolina. This long strip. How is that a district? How, when you understand voters, when you're talking about voting, and you're talking about when you're talking about a district or a demographic, you're saying, hey, I want to represent this block of people, that block of people. How can you represent a block of people that stretches the outline of the state?
News, hailed by Democrats and Republicans as a model for how states could pursue election reform. Should be a ray of hope for people in Ohio, said Republican State Rep Kurt Schering. I think we will have fair districts. I think we will have more competitive districts. If they're more competitive, people in Washington will have to be more conciliatory, he said, not so partisan. That's exactly right. So what the hell happened here? Well, Ohio Republicans just decided to disregard the state constitution and the will of the voters. See, a 7-member redistricting commission had a month to work on a fair map. But Republican members refused to participate, and so the commission couldn't convene. The power to draw the lines fell back to the Republican-controlled state assembly, who proceeded to do exactly what the constitutional amendment forbid. They cracked and packed minority communities, dividing counties and cities for their own partisan advantage. For example, Hamilton County, home to Cincinnati, which voted for Biden by a 16-point margin, will be divided into 3 congressional districts with black voters offset by white Republicans. And that's why many are saying this map might not only violate the Ohio Constitution, but the U.S. Voting Rights Act. So what's next? Well, it'll go to Ohio's Republican Governor Mike DeWine for his...
Let me tell you about the Voting Rights Act. The Voting Rights Act was designed mainly for the South, but it was designed so that any state, anybody can go and get with the Justice Department or and say, hey, we believe that this state is being discriminatory toward black and quote unquote minority people when it comes to their voting practices and creating their voting laws and things like that. And the federal government can step in, because if you know, voting is 50 plus 1 separate districts. 50 states in the Washington, D.C. And this is per the Constitution, every voting that's cast in America is done on a local level. There is no federal control over voting. And if it was, God help us, because if the federal government controlled voting, Donald Trump may still be president. We may have had another tyrannical guy to come in and change voting laws during the voting process. So putting it back into the hands of the states, because again, the founding members of the United States, they were skeptical of putting all the power in one place. So putting voting back into the hands of the quote unquote people and giving it back to the states to control locally is what we do. So each state controls their voting process. Each state legislature controls their voting process. And in doing so, well, because of that, you have the people. I'm kind of losing my point here, but stick with me. The people control their voting. And if the federal government was involved, it would be a catastrophe. But the way they're doing it is that, again, like I said, the way they're cutting up Americans, no matter how many people vote Republican or Democrat, Republicans will still win.
Signature. Well, it'll go to Ohio's Republican Act. So what's next? Voters
Give me a second.
offset by white Republicans. And that's why many are saying...
I was losing my point. That's my point. Going to the Department of Justice, they can go and say, hey, these people are doing something against minorities, quote unquote minorities. And the Department of Justice can go in and review those people in their laws and say, nope, go back and fix it. Go back and fix it. And that was going on from the 1960s up until a Supreme Court ruling by, what's his face? Justice Roberts. Justice Roberts changed the voting law. He pretty much gutted the 65, is it the 65 or the 64 voting rights bill? He pretty much gutted that bill and took the federal government out of it. So once he did that, and this is my point, once he did that, states like Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Florida, and a lot of other Republican-controlled states, they started gutting their own voting rights. They started ignoring their voting rights because now the federal government is not involved in watching what they do. In Alabama alone, they took the quote-unquote black belt. Not only is it the quote-unquote black belt because of it's heavily populated with black folk, but it's also the black belt because it was heavily populated in black fertile soil. That strip in Alabama, because you got above up in the top half of Alabama, you got the top third of Alabama, you got Republicans. The middle, you got Democrats, and at the bottom, you got Republicans. What they did was they took and said, you need an ID to vote. Okay. But then they started closing down DMVs in that area. So someone that's on the other side of the state had to drive 2 hours one way. If they had the means, they had to drive 2 hours one way to get a valid voting license or whatever. This is what they do.
This map might not only violate the Ohio Constitution, but the U.S. Voting Rights Act. So what's next? Well, it'll go to Ohio's Republican Governor Mike DeWine for his signature. Now, back in 2018, he told the Cincinnati Enquirer, quote, voters said that redistricting process should be done in a bipartisan way. And when I'm governor, there will be an expectation that the new district maps honor the voters' wishes. That was then. But this is now. Now, DeWine's already admitted that the result was not where we needed it to be. But in the unlikely event that he actually follows through and vetoes, he'd probably be overridden by State House Republicans, who just passed an anti-vax law over his objections. Lawsuits will be filed. Then the maps will go to the Ohio Supreme Court for judgment, where DeWine's son is a justice who's already announced that he would not recuse himself from this case. This partisan map is clearly in violation of the state constitution. What it really does is show that Republicans only care about controlling Congress in the upcoming midterms.
Exactly.
They won't be constrained by pesky things like laws or state constitutions in their pursuit of power. And what happens in Ohio doesn't stay in Ohio. This is just one example of the rigged redistricting that's happening in state houses across the country right now, trying to predetermine the midterm elections before a single vote is cast. It's also an example of why federal election reform is so needed, because even statewide reforms, backed by the vast majority of voters, can be discarded by the party in power. As David Pepper, former chair of the Ohio State Democratic Party, writes in his new book, Laboratories of Autocracy, we are witnessing a coordinated, nationwide weaponization of state houses to undermine American democracy itself. Make no mistake, this is happening right now. They're just hoping you won't notice until it's too late. And that's your reality check.
Like I said, they are rigging the system. They're rigging the system to where no matter how Democrats vote, they'll still lose. I got people in my hometown of Mobile that came out and said it doesn't. Why do we continue to vote? It doesn't matter. Nothing changes here because we keep losing. No, I mean that's the wrong thing. That's the wrong mindset to have. But you gotta kind of agree with them. What's the population of I think I remember it, but I just wanted to make sure. Yep, 400,000 people, 411,814 people in Mobile County. Of those 411,000 people, I want to say it's 60-40 white to black. Does that matter? Not really. Of that split, 60-40, Republican Democrat is about 60-40. So no matter how many people vote in a county like Mobile County, Democrats may always lose. I'm not talking about a county like that. I'm talking about, and that's just a county. That's not the district. Let me show you Mobile County district map. This is from the website. House and Senate district map. They have them in PDFs. Because I want to show you what they did to the city of Mobile. They practically, I don't want to keep opening up all these different PDF files, but the city of Mobile sits near Mobile Bay. And it's heavily populated. It's heavily, quote unquote, minority populated. What they did with the district is that they carved up the city of Mobile. So the population in Mobile can also apply to Chickasaw. You know what I'm saying? These people have pretty much really nothing in common. What year is this? This is a district map. Oh, this is 2018. Okay, this is 2018. Yeah, 2018. Look at this. Inside Mobile, this is the city of Mobile, right? This is the city of Mobile. And the districts, they've pretty much taken the heart of the city and cut it open. This right here, this circle right here, is pretty much the heart of the district. They've taken the heart of the district and they carved it up. So let's look at District 2, this orange district. You got people way up here. These people way up here really have nothing in common with the people way down here. But that's the way they divided the district, because the city of Mobile is more populated, heavily populated, than way up here. And they did that with each district. Each district got a piece of the population in Mobile, in the city of Mobile. And that's what they do. This is how the GOP cheats the system. And again, it's not just Ohio, it's around the country. And just to give you context, the guy that did that reality check, he works for CNN, but he used to work for George H.W. Bush, I think. I think he's a Republican. Him and his wife, they're Republicans. I'm going to leave it right there, people. 24 minutes. If you stuck this long, I appreciate you sticking around this long. I can get a little long-winded when I'm talking about stuff like this, so I appreciate you guys sticking around. Hey, what's the day? Wednesday? My day is just, yeah. You guys have a great Thanksgiving Eve. I can get into the history of Thanksgiving. I can get into why we really shouldn't celebrate the history of Thanksgiving. But I'll leave that for another time. I will see you guys on the next one. Take care. I'm out.